In late 2019, Idle Heroes saw the release of Garuda, a hero who was both a powerhouse in PvP and PvE and quickly established herself as one of the most powerful heroes in the game, getting a reputation for being both annoying in PvP and also oppressive in PvE, two traits that stand to this very day. Garuda has the ability to not only provide herself with sustain and defense, but also transform this defense into offensive firepower in an active skill that is notorious for dealing colossal amounts of damage and tearing through most PvP defenses such as Unbending Will. She ushered in what was called the Golden Age of Idle Heroes as we moved into 2020. Celestial Island was reworked, rewards became plentiful, puppets were commonplace. New events such as Imp's Adventure were revealed, and meta-defining heroes such as Carrie and later Russell and Drake revolutionized the game. Throughout this time, Garuda maintained her reputation as one of the most powerful heroes in the game, and she frequently was argued to be one of the best, if not the best, first E5 people could build on their account. However, this reputation wouldn't last because in mid-2020, Garuda saw two colossal changes to Idle Heroes. The first being the release of The Void, which revolutionized how people played the game. And secondly, Jun Sakayama was the first ever person to be recorded completing Death 100 in Idle Heroes. Many people competed for this accolade in Aspen Dungeon, but Jun was the first, and soon others would follow. And there's something important about Aspen Dungeon and The Void, and that's that Garuda isn't useful. Aspen Dungeon and the Gate of the Void would forever change the game in 2020. It was when Idle Heroes was changed so that your progress in Aspen Dungeon affected the max level of your heroes that many high-end players and smaller players alike all turned their sights to how to perform the best in Aspen Dungeon. The important thing many people would say is you want your first E5 to be able to get you somewhere decent in Aspen Dungeon, but it never became a priority until your level was literally determined by your Aspen Dungeon progress. Many heroes like Garuda, who were just kind of okay at Aspen Dungeon, suddenly were pushed to the wayside as people were looking for much more powerful solutions to Aspen Dungeon. The key one being Tix, who was later released in 2020, but also people like Swordflash were also very good, and lots of heroes such as Ada and Russell and Penny earned their place as heroes that were able to perform excellently in the Aspen Dungeon. With these heroes that were already well established and fantastic first E5s, it became difficult for heroes like Garuda to keep up, not to mention that the Forest Seal Land was already a struggle for many people, and Garuda's ability to beat that was slim at best. So many people found that Garuda wasn't an ideal choice as a first E5. So you might be scratching your head, why is it then that I see so many Garudas in the early game? Well, that's a little something we're going to be talking about today. But let me also let you know about The Void. The Void arc was released later on in 2021, and it offered many interesting changes. Garuda didn't really solidify herself as a hero that could perform very well in there. You look at the Realms Gate, Garuda's okay but not fantastic, and then finally we have the Void Vortex, and not many people choose to use a Garuda in their strategies to push forward. It's much more important that you have powerful artifacts as opposed to heroes such as Garuda, because Garuda on her own just can't cut it. So to go back to my initial point, why is it then do you see so many Garudas in the game? Well, it all has to do with one change that happened a few months ago. DH Games introduced the Glory Challenge to the game, and with that, early players can get their hands on a load of copies of Garuda. Not just Garuda, but 6-star dummies for the Forest faction, and for the first time we'd ever seen it, and ever since really, 5-star puppets as well. And these 5-star puppets could be used to build Garuda alongside these 6-star dummies you would get. You were literally in the early game being spoon-fed all the copies you needed to build a 10-star Garuda, and then obviously with that head start, most people would go on to build her to E1 through to E5 and use her as their first E5. If you didn't know, building an E5 at the beginning of the game is very important because the Void Vortex and the Void Arc and all the other areas in the Void can only be unlocked once you get a hero to E5, and these game modes offer so many fantastic rewards and begin the slow grind that is getting your first Transcendence hero. So with all those things unlocked, you obviously gain a massive benefit over players that don't have an E5, so the priority in early game is to build an E5. If you haven't seen already, I have videos discussing building your first E5, although the heroes I recommend are a little outdated. So I would say for you guys right now who are curious, my recommendations as it stands today, check the release of this video please, Penny, Ithaca, and Eloise are the best 3 first E5s to build. If you can, building one in Light and Dark is also pretty fun. I personally recommend Drake, as I have done it myself, but it wouldn't be an optimal decision, although it is very, very fun. If you were going for a Light and Dark hero, Russell is probably your best bet. That said though, there are many good choices out there, but these heroes are known and tried and tested to be good in many areas of the game. Their own Seal lands they excel at, they're good at broken spaces, they can clear Tower of Oblivion with some decent ease, and they are phenomenal in Aspen Dungeon or the Void Vortex, depending on which hero you build. So it is my recommendation to focus on those. Many people will ask, where is Inosuke on that list? Well, sadly, Inosuke hasn't been very good since the Shield reworks. He's an okay first E5, but I wouldn't recommend him to you guys at home. Anyway, as you've just noticed, I didn't include Garuda on that list of recommended E5s, and that's because, as I said earlier, she struggles with her own Seal land, and Seal land is a very important game mode. But this is something a lot of players don't realise, because Garuda is, by her own build, exceptionally powerful in mid-game and early-game PvP. It is no secret that E5s can lose to an E3 Garuda because Garuda's active skill is just so strong. Whenever a hero dies, which is very likely in early mid-game because, let's be honest, most heroes are very weak apart from maybe 1 or 2 E5s you have, they heal Garuda when they die. As well, whenever a hero attacks, Garuda also deals her own attack damage outside of her turn, which is not only a great way of increasing the amount of damage you do, but it's getting so much more use out of one E5 because the rest of your team suck, so when they poke and then Garuda comes and backs them up, your damage output is massively increased. And then when you finally do land an active skill with Garuda, it hits like a freight train because all of the feathers that she's managed to accumulate will then be burst out and absolutely annihilate heroes. Not to mention, if it crits, there is hardly any chance your hero will survive. There are very few strategies out there that can survive against a Garuda active skill in the early game, and it is for that reason that many people get locked into building her. It isn't difficult to enter into a game and focus on player versus player content. Comparing yourself to other people is in our human nature, and looking what other people are doing and seeing them being successful is how we learn as people. So it is not unusual that when people go into PvP and start losing to Garudas, they look at all these free copies of Garudas they've been given and they go on and build their own. Many people say, hey, why am I losing to Garuda? I built this hero you recommended, but for some reason my Ithaca is dying. The main thing is that the priority of early game players who aren't familiar with Idle Heroes is PvP, and you are probably the same when you go in. But when I recommend heroes, and when any established player recommends heroes, their view is much more holistic. We talk about Seal Land, the Void, Aspen Dungeon, Broken Spaces, things like that offer you rewards. PvP doesn't give you very many rewards unless you plan on spending a lot of money and being up there with the best of them. If you aren't spending money, there is no way you can keep up with the other people on your server, and you will just flat out lose. It's that simple. Now, obviously, you will lose more against Garudas if you don't have a Garuda yourself, and this is the problem people get stuck into. You need to stop thinking about PvP. And this is the issue I have with Garuda as a whole. Garuda is everywhere in the early game. It is brain dead to build her. You don't have to think. You are literally spoon-fed all the materials and all the parts to build this hero. It's as if DH Games have said, hey look, we have this game called Idle Heroes, build this first hero, you'll be alright. Also, you need an E5 to unlock the Void, so make this one E5. Okay, cheers, thanks. And again, if you spend a little bit of money, they have a chest that literally gives you a copy of Garuda in it, which makes it even easier to build Garuda if you plan on spending. So many people find themselves building Garuda as their first E5, and then they turn to me and say, MK, I'm struggling, my Garuda isn't doing very good, should I get rid of them? Because then they hear and watch a video such as this one where I'm bashing on Garuda, and then they want to get rid of it. But annoyingly, here's the problem, Garuda is actually okay. she can do Forest Seal Land, but you do need a little bit of help. She is good in the guild settlement because the guild settlement doesn't actually have many good warriors that can fight against it, Garuda being the exception. So if you build a Garuda, she'll do well in the guild settlement in both the forest and warrior categories, and she will also do fantastically eventually in the Forest Seal Land. So if you folks are sat there at home with your own E5 Garuda watching this video a little disheartened because you fell into the Garuda trap, don't worry, she will serve you well. The only thing is that you will struggle moving forwards into several game modes. Aspen Dungeon is a really difficult game mode for Garuda. She struggles a lot, and it will be difficult for you to move forwards. Seal Land as well. It's going to be hard for her unless you get her to a high Void level with support heroes such as Heartwatcher, Olivia, Rosa, different heroes such as that, even Oberons and Glorias for CC, and Rogan because he's just very, very good. And yeah, that results in a really complicated mess. Because the other problem you have with Garuda is, as I said earlier about guild settlements, there's not many good warriors. So if you're putting all your guild tech into warrior, you then have to go, what other warriors am I going to build to benefit from this warrior tech? And there's not many other good warriors in the game. So you end up trapped and stuck with a Garuda. So lots of people find themselves building Garuda and getting stuck into this mess. So my recommendation to you folks at home out there is don't look at other people's Garudas with envy. It's fine to lose to a Garuda. Garuda is just annoying. And in fact, I think she's bad for the game because people get this psychological link to her from PvP that she is good and they must build her. She is fine as maybe a third or fourth E5, but as your first E5, there are much better choices. As I've said, Penny, Eloise, Ithaca, just to name 3. And sadly, a lot of people don't know that. And they go in, get handed all these Garuda copies, and then they just are stuck. Because once you've committed to a hero such as Garuda, I wouldn't want to use that as food. I wouldn't want to feed off a Garuda. I'd have to keep it around and build it. And if you don't go and watch copious amounts of YouTube videos and try and find their videos that are recommending heroes, it's very easy actually that you pick up a video from 2019, like I said at the beginning of the video, where she was a recommended hero as a first E5. I have videos out already over YouTube with tons of views, tens of thousands of views where I recommended Garuda as a first E5. I have tier lists with I think over 100,000 views that put her near the top. In the golden age of Idle Heroes before the Void was released, yes, Garuda was a phenomenal hero. But nowadays, she isn't. She struggles. It's hard for her to get past many game modes in the early game unless you have Void imprints to back it up. And to get Void imprints, you need better E5s. Heroes such as Tix for Aspen Dungeon, who can burst as well in the Vortex. Heroes such as Penny, who can do very similar things. And there's many other heroes out there as well, such as Eloise, that just smash and smash and smash and are naturally tanky and are probably natural successors to what was the crown and legacy that Garuda established for herself. Eloise is now the modern day Garuda. If you wanted a very, very powerful E5 to build, she is the one to go for. We also have heroes that echo on that, such as Waldeck and Ithaca to an extent, that are worth picking up. There are many Transcendence heroes out there that really have begun to push many, many heroes that aren't Transcended out of the meta. And it leaves us in a funny spot where Garuda just doesn't quite cut it anymore. So folks, have you built a Garuda? Let me know in the comment section. Was she your first E5? Again, let me know. And did you build her because of the Glory Challenge? It's most likely that you did. So I just wanted to warn you guys out there, if you're new to Idle Heroes and you're watching this video and you are getting your Garuda copies, she's probably not the best first E5 to build. Use all the 5-star dummies and the 6-star dummies you're getting to build fodder heroes to improve a different E5. And just keep those Garuda copies around for at some point in the future where you feel it's about time to start pushing Warrior and Forest in the guild settlement. And maybe at some point you might even need that Garuda for the Forest Seal Land. But within all honesty, I think with the release of new Forest heroes, and if you decide to go and prioritize building Rogan, you might not even need Garuda for that, especially when imprints are involved. So folks, although she is a very powerful hero and has quite the legacy behind her, Garuda isn't the hero she used to be. And don't fall into the trap of mimicking other people in the early game just because their Garuda beats you. In the long run, you're going to be better by not building her.